3 months. That's how long Brian's been living in some extended stay motel just outside Cincinnati, sending me these pathetic texts about boundaries and respect, and how he needs to find himself again. All because I told him one simple truth that apparently his fragile ego couldn't handle. I don't owe you intimacy. That's it. That's the sentence that supposedly destroyed our 8-year marriage. Not the years of him working late, barely noticing when I'd spent hours getting ready for date nights he'd cancel. Not the weekends he'd spend in the garage tinkering with his car while I sat inside, alone, wondering when he'd stopped seeing me. Not even the fact that I'd been sleeping with his brother Kyle for the past 6 months. No, according to Brian, everything fell apart because I finally said out loud what I'd been feeling for years. The fight started like they all did. He came home from work, saw me on the couch scrolling through my phone, and immediately started in with his passive-aggressive sighing. That heavy, dramatic breathing he did when he wanted attention but wouldn't just ask for it like an adult. "Want to do something tonight?" he asked, standing in the doorway like some lost puppy. I didn't even look up. "Like what?" "I don't know, watch a movie, talk, spend time together?" The way he said it, all hopeful and needy, made my skin crawl. This was the same man who forgot our anniversary 3 years running, who bought me a vacuum for my birthday because it was practical, who thought foreplay was optional and romance was a waste of money. "I'm tired, Brian." "You're always tired when I want to spend time with you." That's when I snapped. Maybe it was the accusation in his voice, like I was the problem. Maybe it was Kyle's text that had just popped up on my phone asking when I could get away tomorrow. Maybe I was just done pretending. "I don't owe you intimacy," I said, finally looking at him. "Just because we're married doesn't mean I have to drop everything whenever you decide you want attention." The look on his face was almost comical. Eyes wide, mouth slightly open, like I'd just told him I was an alien. He actually laughed, this nervous little sound that made him seem even more pathetic. What does that even mean? It means exactly what it sounds like. I'm tired of you acting like my body, my time, my attention are things you're entitled to just because you put a ring on my finger 8 years ago. I wasn't asking for... I just wanted to watch a movie, Natalie. But we both knew it wasn't about the movie. It was about the fact that I'd stopped pretending to want him months ago. Stopped faking enthusiasm when he'd reach for me in bed. Stopped pretending his touch did anything but make me think about how different it was with Kyle. Kyle, who actually went to the gym. Who smelled like cologne instead of motor oil. Who knew how to make me laugh. Who made me feel 25 again instead of the tired 33-year-old housewife I'd become. "You wanted more than a movie and we both know it," I said. "You wanted me to curl up next to you, pretend I'm interested in whatever boring documentary you picked, then follow you to bed like a good little wife. Well, I'm done with that." "Done with what? Being my wife?" "Done pretending that your needs matter more than mine." The words hung between us like a blade. I watched his face crumble, then rebuild itself into something harder. He set his coffee mug down on the counter, the one Emma made him in her pottery class that said "World's Okayest Dad" in crooked letters, his daughter from his first marriage, the one I'd stopped bothering to pick up for our weekends. The daughter I'd helped raise for 6 years, who still asked why I didn't come to her soccer games anymore. I hadn't been to one since I started seeing Kyle. Too risky. Too many chances of running into Patricia, of having to look Brian's sister-in-law in the eye while I was sleeping with her husband. "When did I ever say my needs matter more?" Brian asked, his voice steady, but I could hear the tremor underneath. "When have I ever forced you to do anything you didn't want to do?" It's not about forcing. It's about expecting. You expect me to be available whenever you want attention. You expect me to be grateful for the bare minimum. "Bare minimum?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I work 60 hours a week at a job I hate to keep us in this house. I spent 3 months renovating the kitchen because you said cooking in the old one made you miserable. I haven't seen my friends in months because you said guys' night made you feel abandoned. What part of that is the bare minimum?" I never asked you to give up your friends. Yes, you did. You literally cried about it. Said if I loved you, I'd want to spend my free time with you. Had I said that? Maybe. It sounded like something I would have said 3 years ago, back when I still thought I wanted all his attention. Before it became suffocating. Before Kyle started texting me funny memes during Brian's work presentations, making me laugh in ways Brian hadn't in years. Things change, I said. People change. He just stood there, staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Which maybe he was. Maybe for the first time in 8 years, he was actually seeing Natalie instead of just Brian's wife. I work 60 hours a week, he said quietly. I've given up promotions to stay local so you wouldn't have to leave your family. I've spent every weekend for the past 3 months renovating the kitchen because you said you hated it. How is asking to spend one evening with my wife acting entitled? God, he was so good at that. Making himself the victim, making me feel guilty for having boundaries, for being honest. No one asked you to do any of that. You did! You literally asked me to redo the kitchen. And that means I owe you sex? I never said that. Then what are you saying, Brian? Spell it out for me. What exactly do you think I owe you? He ran his hands through his hair, that gesture he did when he was frustrated. His wedding ring caught the light, and I found myself staring at it, remembering when it was new. When we were new. Before the reality of marriage set in. Before I realized that "till death do us part" was a prison sentence, not a promise. I think married people should want to be together, should want intimacy with each other. Want is the key word there. Want, not owe. So you don't want me anymore? The question hung in the air between us. The truth sat on my tongue, heavy and bitter. No, I didn't want him. Hadn't wanted him in months. Every time he touched me, I closed my eyes and pictured Kyle. Every kiss felt like betrayal. Not of Brian, but of myself. Of what I deserved. The last time we'd been intimate was 4 months ago. Brian's birthday. I'd had 3 glasses of wine at dinner and felt guilty enough to go through the motions when we got home. But even drunk, I couldn't pretend to enjoy it. He must have sensed something was off because he stopped halfway through, asked if I was okay. I'm fine, I'd lied, staring at the ceiling. You don't seem fine. You seem somewhere else. I was somewhere else. I was in Kyle's apartment, the one he kept for when he needed space from Patricia. The one with the leather couch where he'd first kissed me, where he'd told me I was wasted on Brian, that I deserved someone who could match my energy, my passion. Just tired, I'd said. And Brian had rolled away, disappointed but not surprised. That was the last time he'd tried to initiate anything physical. Like he knew. Like he was giving me space to come back to him on my own. But I wasn't coming back. I was already gone. Sneaking out for lunch meetings that ran 3 hours long, yoga classes that were really afternoons in Kyle's bed. But I wasn't ready to blow everything up. Not yet. Kyle was still married too, still figuring out his exit strategy with Patricia. We needed more time to plan, to make sure we could be together without all the mess of divorces and family drama. I'm just tired, I said instead. Can we talk about this later? We never talk about it later. Later never comes. Because there's nothing to talk about. I said what I said. If you can't handle me having boundaries... Boundaries? Is that what we're calling this? You haven't let me touch you in 6 months, Natalie. You barely look at me. You act like being in the same room as me is some kind of punishment. 6 months. Exactly how long I'd been seeing Kyle. But Brian didn't need to know that his instincts were dead on, that every rejection had been because I was saving myself for his brother, that the perfume he'd complimented last week was the one Kyle bought me, that the new black lace lingerie he'd found in the laundry, the set he'd raised an eyebrow at, wasn't for him. It never was. Maybe if you were more interesting, I'd want to spend time with you. The words came out sharper than I intended. Cruel, but also true. Brian was boring, had always been boring, safe, stable. The kind of guy you married because he'd never cheat, never leave, never surprise you. Kyle was everything Brian wasn't. Dangerous, exciting, unpredictable. The kind of man who made you feel alive instead of just existing. Something changed in Brian's face then. The hurt was still there, but underneath it was something else. Something that looked almost like relief? "You're right," he said quietly. "I'm not interesting. I'm just the guy who pays the bills and fixes things and shows up every day. I'm reliable, boring, reliable Brian." I didn't mean, yes, you did. And you know what? You're right, I am boring, but at least I'm trying. When's the last time you tried, Natalie? When's the last time you put any effort into us? I'm not the one who let myself go. I'm not the one who thinks watching TV counts as quality time. I'm not the one who what? Who's been faithful? Who's been here every night instead of out with the girls 3 times a week? Who's been pretending not to notice that you're always on your phone, always smiling at texts that you hide the second I walk in? My heart stopped. He knew. Or at least suspected. I needed to deflect, fast. Oh, so now I'm not allowed to have friends? Not allowed to have a life outside of serving your needs? That's not what It's exactly what you're saying. You want me to be some 1950s housewife who lives for your approval, who's grateful for whatever scraps of attention you throw my way between work and your precious garage time. Well, I'm not that woman, Brian. I never was. I know, he said softly. I guess I thought we were partners, that we were in this together. There is no together when one person does all the emotional labor. Emotional labor? Is that what you call shutting me out? Rejecting every attempt I make to connect with you? Making me feel like a stranger in my own home? You are a stranger. When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you asked about my dreams, my goals, anything beyond what's for dinner? Last Tuesday, I asked about your promotion at work. You told me to stop bothering you while you were watching your show. I didn't remember that. Or maybe I did and just didn't care. It was hard to keep track of all the times I'd pushed him away, all the walls I'd built to protect the secret life I was building with Kyle. One conversation doesn't make up for years of neglect. Years of... Natalie, what are you talking about? We went to Hawaii for our anniversary. I surprised you with that weekend in Chicago. We have date nights. We had date nights, until you started canceling them for work. Twice. I canceled twice in the last year, both times for emergencies that couldn't wait. He was keeping score. Of course he was. That's what Brian did. Collected facts, built cases, tried to prove his point with logic and evidence, as if relationships could be solved like math problems. It doesn't matter, I said, exhausted by the whole conversation. The point is, I don't owe you anything. Not my time, not my body, not my attention. If you can't accept that, then what? His voice was different now. Calmer. Resolved. What happens if I can't accept being in a marriage where my wife openly tells me she doesn't owe me basic intimacy? Then maybe you should think about whether this marriage is working for you. I expected him to crumble, to beg, to promise he'd try harder, be better, give me more space. That's what Brian did. He fixed things. He solved problems. He never gave up. Instead, he just nodded. You're right. I should think about that. And then he walked out of the room. I sat there for another hour waiting for him to come back, to apologize for overreacting, to try again. But the house stayed quiet except for the sound of drawers opening and closing upstairs. When he finally came back down, he was carrying a duffel bag. Where are you going? I don't know. Hotel, probably. I need some time to think. You're leaving? Over one fight? He stopped at the door, turned back to look at me. It's not one fight, Natalie. It's 6 months of you pulling away. It's feeling like I'm begging for scraps of affection from my own wife. It's being told that expecting intimacy in my marriage makes me entitled. So you're punishing me for being honest? No. His voice was flat, all the fight gone. I'm respecting your boundaries. You don't owe me intimacy, I get it. But I don't owe you a husband who's okay with that. The door closed behind him with a quiet click. No slamming, no drama. Just Brian doing what Brian always did, handling things calmly, rationally like an adult. I texted Kyle immediately. He's gone, took a bag and left. Finally! Now we can be together for real. But something about Brian's exit bothered me. He hadn't fought, hadn't begged, hadn't even seemed that surprised. It was like he'd been waiting for an excuse to leave. 3 days passed before he texted me. I've been thinking. You were right. You don't owe me intimacy. But I've realized I don't owe you a marriage without it. I'll be filing for separation. We can work out the details through lawyers. Lawyers? He'd already gotten lawyers involved? I called him immediately. Brian, don't you think you're overreacting? It was one fight. Was it, though? Was it really just one fight? Or was it you finally saying out loud what you've been showing me for months? I just need space. Time to figure things out. Take all the time you need. I won't be waiting. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done, Natalie. Done feeling like I'm bothering my wife by existing. Done walking on eggshells in my own home. Done pretending this is just a rough patch we'll work through. So, you're abandoning our marriage? 8 years just thrown away? I'm not the one who threw it away. The line went dead. I tried calling back, but he didn't answer. Texted him dozens of times over the next week. Nothing. Kyle was thrilled, of course. Kept talking about how we could finally be together, how Patricia was close to agreeing to a divorce, how everything was falling into place. But it didn't feel like things were falling into place. It felt like they were falling apart. Brian had already moved our shared accounts, leaving me access to exactly half. He'd hired movers to get his things while I was at work. He'd even taken his name off the utilities, leaving me to set them up in my name alone. Every move was calculated, precise, like he'd been planning this for weeks. Good riddance, Kyle said when I complained. He sounds controlling. Making all these moves without talking to you. But that wasn't it. Brian wasn't being controlling. He was being done. Completely, utterly done. And somehow that was worse than if he'd fought dirty. A month into our separation, I ran into his coworker Dawn at the grocery store. She gave me this look, pity mixed with something else. Disgust, maybe? How's Brian? I asked, trying to sound casual. He's adjusting. The guys at work have been making sure he's okay. What does that mean? She shifted uncomfortably. Just, taking him out, making sure he's not alone all the time. He's been staying with Tom and Sandra. They've got that finished basement. Tom and Sandra, our friends. Well, Brian's friends now, apparently. They'd chosen sides without even asking for my version. Did he tell everyone what happened? I asked, trying to keep the accusation out of my voice. Dawn's expression hardened. He didn't have to. We've all watched you pull away for months. Watched him try everything to save your marriage while you treated him like an inconvenience. Nobody needed the details. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? I was there when he called in sick because you'd kept him up all night fighting about him working late. I saw him skip lunch for weeks to afford that necklace you never wear. I watched him defend you when Jerry made that joke about you being too good for him. The necklace. I'd forgotten about the necklace. A delicate gold thing with a small sapphire. My birthstone. He'd given it to me for our anniversary 6 months ago. It was in my jewelry box somewhere. Tags probably still on. I'd been wearing the tennis bracelet Kyle gave me instead. Marriage is complicated, I said, like someone quoting a book they never read. No, Natalie. People are complicated. Marriage is just two people choosing each other every day. You stopped choosing him a long time ago. She walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing there with my cart full of wine and microwave dinners for one. Tell him I asked about him, I called after her. She turned back, something like sympathy flickering across her face. I don't think that's a good idea. He's finally starting to seem like himself again. Happy, even. Maybe leave him be. Happy. 3 months of separation and he was happy. Kyle said I was obsessing, that I needed to focus on our future, not my past. But he didn't understand. Brian wasn't supposed to be happy. He was supposed to be miserable, lost, realizing what he'd given up. He was supposed to come crawling back so I could have the upper hand, could set the terms of our reconciliation. Instead, he'd hired the best divorce attorney in the city. Sent me a settlement proposal that was more than fair. He wasn't even fighting for alimony despite making less than me. Just a clean break. Sign here, move on, pretend 8 years never happened. Why won't you fight for us? I texted him one night after too much wine. I did fight. For 6 months. You just weren't paying attention. I'm paying attention now. No, you're panicking because I'm not playing the role you expected. I'm done, Natalie. Sign the papers. What if I don't? Then we do this the hard way. Either way, I'm not coming back. Kyle was getting impatient with my stalling. His divorce was almost final. He wanted us to start looking for places together, start our new life. But something held me back. Maybe it was the way he'd started criticizing little things. My cooking, my clothes, my friends. Maybe it was realizing that the excitement I'd felt was already fading, replaced by the same suffocating feeling I'd had with Brian. Or maybe it was the photo Tom posted on social media last week. A group shot from some brewery. Brian in the middle, laughing at something. Looking relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in years. Looking good, too. Like he'd been working out. Like freedom agreed with him. Like I'd been the weight he finally dropped. There was a woman next to him. Pretty, young. Her hand on his arm. Casual, but intimate. The caption just said, "Great night with great people." I signed the divorce papers the next day. Kyle moved in the week after it was finalized. By then, the excitement had worn off completely. He was just another man expecting things from me, making himself comfortable in the space Brian had vacated. Only Kyle was worse in some ways. Less patient, more demanding, quick to anger when I wasn't in the mood. I thought you'd be different once we could really be together, he said one night after I'd rejected his advances. Not frigid like you were with my brother. Frigid. The word stung more than it should have, because that's exactly what I was becoming again. The cycle starting over, the walls going back up, the resentment building. I don't owe you intimacy either, I snapped back. He laughed, actually laughed. You've got to be kidding me. That's the line that ended your marriage and you're using it on me? It's not a line. It's a boundary. It's an excuse. You're just as cold and selfish as Brian said you were. Brian talked to you about me? After the divorce, yeah. We met for a beer, warned me what I was getting into, said you'd pull the same shit with me eventually. Guess he was right. Get out. Gladly. Patricia's been begging me to come back anyway. At least she never called love an obligation. And just like that, Kyle was gone too. Packed up his things and left. Probably straight back to the wife he'd been so eager to leave 6 months ago. The wife who'd taken him back because she was smarter than me. Because she knew that sometimes boring was better than being alone. Now I sit in this empty house, scrolling through photos of Brian's new life. He's dating that woman from the brewery photo. Rebecca, according to her tagged photos. A nurse, volunteers at animal shelters, runs marathons. The kind of woman who probably never tells her boyfriend she doesn't owe him intimacy because she actually wants to be intimate with him. They look happy in every photo. Natural. Easy. The way Brian and I looked in the beginning, before I decided I deserved more than a good man who loved me. I text him sometimes. when I'm drunk or lonely or both. He never responds anymore. Just like that night when he walked out, he's handled our ending with dignity, while I've spiraled into whatever this is. I don't owe you intimacy. 5 words that I thought were empowering, 5 words that were supposed to set me free from the obligations of marriage, from the suffocating expectations of partnership. Instead, they became the epitaph for my marriage. The moment I revealed exactly who I was, someone who took and took and took but gave nothing back, someone who confused stability with boredom, devotion with entitlement, love with obligation. Brian was right to leave. Right to find someone who understood that intimacy isn't about owing or taking or demanding. It's about wanting to give yourself to someone who gives themselves to you in return. I know that now. Sitting alone in this house full of renovations he did for me, surrounded by the life we built that I carelessly destroyed. I know exactly what I gave up and why. But knowing doesn't change anything. Brian's gone. Kyle's gone. The life I thought I was too good for has been claimed by someone who knew its worth. And me? I'm exactly where I put myself. Alone with my boundaries and my freedom and my empty bed, finally understanding that I wasn't protecting myself from obligation. I was protecting myself from love. And now it's too late to get it back.